Can you guys see the stream? Is everything working okay?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to go about kind of what to expect, I think, from team play a little bit and talk about what specifically that I look for and kind of give a little justification why. Hopefully that helps you guys, I think, develop a methodology or what you think you should be doing in your individual role. I think a lot of things with map reviews, it's going to go over some basics, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's kind of like the mentality that you guys personally develop um, and the justification that you have of like why each decision that you make is right in terms of team play, in terms of coordination, and then individual goals as well. So um, that's kind of what we're training for. So out the gates on first. Typically the first thing that you hear is some kind of call, usually from your spy, on where the other team is holding. If the other team is holding flank, like over here where they have the gun, it's going to change how you probably play first. You probably won't be able to like hard clear. You're going to probably go aim for something a little quickly towards the beginning of the game. Usually it's an exchange or otherwise. Or you're going to go there playing fence, which I think completely changes how your team is going to do this exchange and how much time they're going to probably spend on your cart timing as well. So, out the door, if you hear that they are exchanging, or the other team is holding flank, typically what I would do is come out the right side. Side obviously doesn't matter, but, clear for traps really quickly. There's typically crit traps on any single payload that you play. It's not a huge deal if you die to them because offense spawns are rather quick. In terms of spy checking, usually what you do out the door is just check all of the nearby transition points, so, corners as you go through them. These are close little areas that, if anything else, if you catch a spy, great. They're probably going for some hero play. I know, like, corners and stuff are pretty common on this point, just places that they don't really expect you to check out the gate, so like on top of the truck or in the corner of the stairs. But most likely, a spy is going to see you coming, and the best thing that you can do by spy checking nearby areas is just to displace them from their, like, optimal position so that you guys can get through that area knowing that you have a little bit of distance between you and a moving spy who's trying to get away. So going out the right side, if they're holding on the flank, you really cannot peek any of these doors. I would actually avoid taking any fights in this general area. This right here is a sight lane, for instance, so you have to be a little bit careful just peeking this doorway, even if you're trying to like clear traps or pressure the heavy or something in this direction. All I really do is make sure that this is clear so that I can set up my soldier and heavy for post. Typically what happens in an exchange against a flank team here, you either take beam over here to the right side, and they use this doorway, maybe try to make a little bit of space, but ultimately end back in this area so that they have some kind of post. Or what's going to happen is your combo is probably going to exchange through main, and then you're going to have like a soldier and heavy maybe whipping in this area ready to come through and post. If you guys are doing this close flank exchange, typically you are not going to be the primary person in the Uber. It's really a team determination, so that might be the case with your team. I know with our team we often do demo and scout, and then I'll be like somewhat nearby just to bail out my team. That's usually how I treat payload Ubers that I'm not in, and really Koth Ubers as well. I try to be in an exit scenario in case there's some stickies behind the combo and I need to clear them really quick, and then maybe get the last flash to like blow somebody back. The only thing your team has to be careful about if they don't take a pyro in the exchange is you can actually get hooked on both sides. So whether you're the offensive pyro and come in, you can hook another team if they don't have a pyro in it. If they do, that's probably not a possibility. I personally am a little bit against hooking in general on pyro just because I think you waste a lot of time and ammo trying to do this, and when you fade, you're not exactly in the best position, and I think having a better post is ultimately better than maybe getting a hero hook in that could otherwise ruin your post if you were to die by being too overcommitted. So something to look out for. So yeah, typically if I come over here, I'll check the traps, I'll spy check really quick. I won't peek any corners or take any fights with the soldier or anything. I want to be there for that post exchange with my combo. If anything else, because post starts immediately. Oftentimes combo fights from the ground here. Their focus is going to be on this heavy over here, usually on the head glitch. Sometimes the heavy will rotate out as not to die in the exchange. And then there's going to be a lot of action just trying to like swing the gun here with probably the spy and the flank pushing all at the same time. And for that, you might have a sniper playing main, and you're just forcing them into a usually like 6-player team fight here on the ground in front of you. The best thing that you can do here, in my opinion, is just keep your sniper demo safe and like watch this drop down a lot, like watch this little corridor here. and just create like a bubble of flame protection, just making sure you get the spot on that. You can also sit forward and reflect stickies, but obviously any single time that you reflect stickies, you have very limited timing and value out of that. So if you were to say here reflect for your demo, you want something to happen out of it. You want it to like be like, okay, I'm leading now, go into them, you know, you're invalidating the other demo's damage, and hopefully your team can capitalize, get forward, and damage other players off of that. If you're just sitting here reflecting, 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 then you have to back up for an ammo kit, and then you come back. Like once you get into that rotation where you're like kind of in and out, I feel like that's kind of a prolonged fight, and you're probably not getting that immediate value out of your reflex. In that case, I think it's sometimes better to again play your win cons, just keep them up. Um, you know, be spy checking for your sniper, make sure he's not getting stabbed while you're doing like pointless reflex. Any single time that you're doing a spearhead, you want it to have value, so the timing really matters. And don't just do it because you know you feel like it's flashy and you feel like you can hit all of them. Like you really want to pick your timings on that, so that it's a team opportunity. Like it's everyone is aware of the timing that it's happening. So ideally, that's gonna win this kind of push. Um, Eventually, if anything else, there's a couple other things I think that you could do involved in this fight. I think, you know, if you have an opportunity to run at somebody and hook them out, it's a good thing. I just think that trades on this point, as a faster respawning team in the offense, you can have value in trades, but ultimately you can also just win this fight off of like positioning and classes being up. So be really careful about like when you choose to sacrifice your life for these kind of things, since sometimes you running at somebody and getting the kill isn't always going to be the fight finisher, and sometimes your death can have other consequences. So you do have to pick and choose a little bit. The only other thing I really do on this point is sometimes I will use this kind of flank over here, where if the other team is holding up top, let's just say, you know, maybe your team is sacking, or they're not playing in the ground and post, you can actually slip against the ladder and they might not see you there, and you can get behind and either bop them off the cliff or do a bunch of damage on their exit. Typically people are not watching this because this is what they see on the defense. They actually don't see somebody hugging here unless they're playing a lot closer kind of piece in the corner here. So that's all I would say for that kind of scenario on first. The only other scenario I would maybe talk about is if they are playing the fence. So the fence is the passive hold on Vigil first. It's pretty much for teams who want to delay like a little bit of time, but ultimately don't want to risk themselves wiping and potentially losing second as a result. Vigil is, I think, one of two maps that I think is very domino effect heavy, where it is pretty hard to get a footing if you like completely wipe on a point and in turn get rolled through the next. So teams that aren't maybe very good at the first hold, or maybe have gotten all the value they can out of the first hold, might try the fence hold as a result. And in my opinion, the winning strategy here is really just to get your sniper over to this power position. You as Pyro, for instance, are probably not going to get too much value out of like directly fighting anybody here. The only thing that you really need to look out for is when you come through here, even if a team is playing the fence, they typically have a flank here. And the flank is almost always maybe a soldier scout who's playing a bit of a long fight, and sometimes they have a heavy who's playing a little bit closer. That's really the thing you have to look out for, is maybe a heavy hiding here or a heavy hiding here. And if you go a little bit too far forward, you know, they round the corner with a bomb and maybe a Spidey cloak, and you guys are like staggering for your team here, and this can become a real cycle if you're not braced and ready for a team fight that they're eventually going to initiate. Because, I mean, if they don't initiate, you know, you take this for free and you have their team pinned down in this power angle, and that's kind of a loss for a team even passively holding first. So they probably will try for something, and I think you just kind of have to be in a defensive position where you're really spy check heavy. You're trying not to look at the action as much as possible in front of you. I think you kind of have to rely on like the rest of your flank for dealing with the forward people as best as possible, while you make sure you have the discipline to keep turning around and make sure that a spy doesn't wipe up the rest of your team. Of course, if you have a little bit of ground, like you can like visually spy check because you have space to work with, and like the flank is out or they've been bullied out and there's no heavy here, like yeah, you can contribute a couple deaths in this direction, and like all of the pressure I think ultimately like teaches a defensive team that they are losing that point. So just something to consider. Now on the win condition, so you guys have now won first, probably. It looks like the other team is winning. You're going to typically get over to this position here and start establishing for hill. There's a couple traps I think you need to look out for. One is the point cap trap. It's kind of, usually it's a tiny bit visual, but a lot of people don't look for it and they'll bob around the cart, not really thinking about it. Just check it just in case, you know. There are a couple dangerous traps when pushing hill. Now, you don't want to swing without info, because sometimes like snipers will take an aggressive angle occasionally, and you just being like, oh, I'm going to start looking for traps. You round the corner, there's a sniper there, you die. It's going to look a little bit dumb. So be a little bit careful on this first swing. But typically I start clearing the traps I can control. So like these above the doorway here are ones that you can get ahead of time without actually peeking the other team. It gets a lot harder when you actually start peeking the hill, because once you're in this angle, you know, you're not even peeking the long open angle to the left here yet. But this angle, they could be swinging this aggressively. And once you're in this area, you are potentially at risk. So you have to be very careful about the timing of which you do this. You want to do it at the rest of your team, and you might be swinging through in one solid motion. So let's get to that push in just a second. I want to talk about what else you might be doing in prep time. So the other thing you have to worry about is getting your cart up. Typically, you don't want to start pushing until your cart is at least kind of at the entrance of tunnel. During this time, you might have your heavy, usually on fist or something like that, or you just have your flank players kind of bobbed around the cart a little bit. If your combo is supporting this, as pyro, you should probably be worried about the other team building banner. Because second is such a difficult point, and really any defensive point on Vigil can be really difficult. You don't want that soldier to build banner as much as possible. It essentially operates as like a second mini Uber. So when you roll forward on the cart, just be kind of facing whatever direction you think the soldier's going to pressure from. Usually for them, this is really easy Uber, banner building. So if you just counter that as best as possible, hopefully they stop peeking it. Usually another team might not contest this in full, but at most you might have to worry about a sniper or someone peeking from like an opposite free door where they can very comfortably peek your team while you're all in here. Just something to worry about, but ultimately your job is going to be focusing down that soldier, and hopefully the rest of your team kind of gets out of the way as much as possible. Just because, if they're in front of you and like being a huge meat sponge and going around the cart like this, they're not exactly helping you either. So your players do need to be aware that they are building banner. Just don't give it to them for free. There are a few different Uber scenarios that you can do on second. So let's go back to hill. I said I was going to talk about it a second ago. Very commonly on this point, you have a spy main calling for the defense. They're usually hanging around here. They might be hanging in Jenkins. They might be hanging on this side of Jenkins, like maybe on the stairs or something like this. They're in a position where they can essentially see where your combo is rotating to. That's their primary. And then, of course, where the sniper is going. So if you're going to go hill with the rest of your combo here, whether it is dry or an exchange, people need to get through this area in one fluid motion very quickly, and the goal is to get over here to the left. If you, as a team, kind of linger in this area, you are creating a very, very stuffable position. For one, the demo with stickies, the soldier that can bomb over from main tunnel or just over the hut directly at you, and then the spy who is main calling all this. He's orchestrating it. So like your team has made it clear that you're pushing in this position. He has the time to organize this with his team and coordinate a pinch on you. If you guys are going in very quickly, that time is lessened, but usually if you're exchanging or something like that, like the post is inevitable. It's almost always going to happen. If you start hill, it's almost always happening in hill and post as well. So that gives the team enough notice of, the exchange is out, a post is about to happen, and the spy starts talking about what kind of pinch they want to do on you guys. So the best thing you can do as a team is getting through this area very quickly and not lingering here, because you have a demo, you have a medic, you have a pyro, you might have an engineer lingering behind, and you have your sniper. And if any of you stall or split, you're creating issues and killing your push, because you pretty much need your demo, medic, and sniper usually to survive in order to kind of like lock down this point and win some space for your car pushers. So one, getting through quickly, and two, I think you need to really be solid about discipline and the roles that you're given. So if you're coming through this area, I talked about spearheading earlier and having value. Going through quickly, this is value for spearheading, giving them like 2-3 seconds of like, we're getting through this tight little choke here. You're checking the trap on the left. You want to maybe avoid the trap on the right. You come over here to the left, and all the while, like, this is when you're spearheading. You're giving them 2-3 seconds of stickies to get them in. And once your demo is kind of in and you've won some space and your sniper has won some space and they're kind of in a more comfortable position, and at least not in this little choky area or this corner, then you can turn around and deal with like maybe double protection on the spy or something else. Why I think it's really important for you to just pick one, whether looking forward or looking back, is because even if you're doing this and you're like, I'm also going to flick behind, like you risk missing the opportunity that bomb happens. Or you miss risking the opportunity of like, oh, you turn for some spam, you get pilled in the back, instantly your push is dead. Just reducing the amount of things you have to like put on your shoulders all at once is kind of I think how you succeed on any map. It's not overcomplicating it. Trust your medic and engineer to be looking behind for the few seconds you get them in and get space, and then you can trade roles. They can beam forward. Your NG will probably still be looking back, but usually NG drops a cart and helps out with that kind of cap over there. But by then, you as Pyro can give a little bit more protection to these players now that you've actually got them through. But
I
very important on that walk up that you give a little bit of sticky spam and then also be wary that this jump will happen. So you kind of put yourself in an angle where you can see all this happening. Don't get like too tunnel vision. See where I am right now where like I have very little bit of the sky on the top half of my screen. Like you might actually miss a bomb from main tunnel if you're too honed in at this. Like I try to angle myself at all times where I can see the most things with the least amount of movement on my screen. Sorry, you had a question?
Yeah, I have a small question about the actual come up. Does the
Mm-hmm.
debt explosion when you like spam like from lower, like the lower area of
Mm-hmm.
a hill, does it actually like
Like down
reach
here?
the aggressive sniper hold? Like the place you were clearing six before you walked up?
Well, it really depends how aggressive they are. I mean, if you're swinging into a sniper, and they're aggressive, it's really this like line that is the hill here. Snipers really like they can be playing aggressive here, but when you're expecting a push, it's actually a little bit safer for them to play this hilltop so that you as the offensive team have to go into their crosshair. It's a little bit safer and it prevents them from being sniped ahead of time by the sniper who's playing it really passive in the back. Um, so typically, like the aggro sniper will take like this angle, they're not like
Okay.
exposed to the players on crates. And if they want to play it really safe, like they know a dry is coming or they know a post is coming, even exchange, they play this line right here, and that kind of keeps them protected. So, um, you can spin the sniper on the walk up. I just think that the most important thing that you need to do is at least check for the trap on the left. Because 8 stickies in this bush right here is going to destroy you. Even if you like spam the sniper first and you hit them, if you come through and you're not reloaded or something yet to trap this, but your demo is already swinging through trying to get through quickly to the left, they might blow up to that, and that's going to kill your push as well. So I do think it is very important to spam the sniper, but you only have so much time to send so many debts. Now, you could also do the thing where,
Like here,
yeah, exactly.
like
If they're
when you
not
kill
picking
that.
you aggressively here, you will have a little bit of space where you can at least like try to get the corner in advance. It might still be too deep for your detonator to hit. So like a lot of times when I walk up, like I try to get a little bit more deep anyway, just taking it wide as I swing through so I don't immediately die to that. But your demo is not always going to do the same thing as you. Your demo might be trying to avoid the sight line as long as possible, going like this. So, if you want to take the risk and go a little bit wider to make sure that you don't miss it, I think that's fine. But again, there's only so much time for everything. So sometimes you have to choose a priority order and make sure that you hit the cannot miss thing as you get through the choke. But obviously, sniper pressure is very good. So if you can hit the det on the sniper without worrying about these traps, like if you know they're not there, like maybe you see them deading sticks or something like that, that will buy you
It's more for
opportunity to use them on something else.
it's more for info for me. Like if you spam like the part like right here, you can tell like if they're holding aggro or not, just like based if the debt
Yeah, but
hits
you
or
can also get sniped right before your push. And that's kind of the discussion we had yesterday, is you have to be very, very careful of when you like do things early because you think you're doing your check marks. But, if you die right before a push, it kills your push for your entire team. You need to be very timed at the same time as them so that multiple bodies are swinging at once. The sniper has multiple targets to pick, and you're using your sniper's presence as a bit of a buff for that. If you swing at the same time as your sniper, they have a choice. Do you shoot the demo, or do you die to the SVS? Or do you take the SVS so that, your demo has a chance of getting through? You kind of like, a lot of times when I play on my sniper, I think of like that timing as my buffer to protect them as well, by in turn like making sure my deaths are not in vain. Like if I am to die to a sniper shot, at least that gives my sniper a chance to win the SVS, and or my team is getting in off of the shot being taken, and by then they've already closed some distance. So you just have to be careful. Like again, if you can clear here, I would be thinking about those steps that I'm clearing more so than being like, where are they holding? Because, like, they're holding on Vigil 2nd. Like, they're there. There's no info to be gained from that. Like, there's only so many places to be, and it doesn't change the process that you have to do to get through. and win the post. So that's going to be your hill push, I think, for the most part. If you get to that position, I think, the semantics, I think, are really just not overextending, not dropping the cart too early, stuff like that. But, there are other power angles even if you win hill. I mean, you kind of have to play the high ground without overextending into them dying to shutter players and dying to sniper that usually goes tracks. Because usually if a team is to lose hill, whether they have disad or they just get bullied out, the next play for them is to be down here. So you have to be careful about overextending in that. There is also 2 other pushes I think you can do. Obviously this is a lot of team-oriented stuff, so this will have to be a determination you guys make within your own teams when you actually decide how you want to play Vigil and have like an ABC push maybe. But typically in a tunnel push, something like that, this is a bit harder. This is a very fast exchange. You meet the other team very quickly. There's no walking into a sniper sightline or anything when you come out tunnel, but ending low ground in post is obviously not ideal either. So if your team is to Uber out in this position, it's usually just to get the other team to use and then maybe rotate somewhere else for post or have somebody in different doors to push for post, which is usually the case even if you go hill. As pyro, you might be in a position where you, especially if you're not into Uber, you just want to like check for traps, you want to look for hiders, but like you want to bail them out if it's going badly, and if it's going well, you can immediately be here. You can scale the side here, which gives you a little bit cover, or at least work on that cart time behind the Uber, especially if you guys have ad. I think the common plan now is if you take an ad Uber through main tunnel, if they're holding close, it kind of forces them to take a very far away angle, and they might even push into your flank. They might push into your side tunnel, they might push higher on the hill, but ultimately they can't collapse on the cart because you have 3 Ubered players here, and what are they going to do running into Ubered players just to stop the cart? So they have to move away, and that's when you really need to be focusing on getting some cap time before they're able to have your Uber fade and focus on how they want to pinch you by having ruined your backline. It's going to be about the same for side. I mean, side is... I actually think side is a very good stack angle. There's some cool things that you can do over here, like a lot of players send their heavy and soldier over here, so you kind of like have to be wary of that a lot of the times for whoever's playing side tunnel, whether or not they get through for free and stack on your medic. But I also think it's pretty cool for stacks because a lot of teams are worried about the bombers, but they might not be worried about a sniper who peeks in for free, especially if they have their soldier or somebody watching side tunnel. You as pyro can even open that up for them just for a second so they can get a shot off on the enemy team, and that will scare the daylights out of them. So it's good stuff. So we can cease talking about second. I think we've been on it for a little bit now. Let's talk about third a little bit. So typically, third is actually a very good point to run through if you get a wipe on second. If you get a wipe on second and you know for sure that there's nobody set up on the flank anymore, you guys can run through, and if you have enough time, you can trap up the spawn and just kind of hold here. Essentially, if you're holding the spawn very well as a team, you can force them to do the long rotate here and take this fight here where they're somewhat low ground, and they don't even get to see your cart without without having a flank presence that goes through white room and goes behind you to hopefully open it up for their combos players here. If you do this successfully on a forward hold, you get the wipe, you're forward holding, you do this successfully, you might be able to claim third just on that alone, but it's not a realistic scenario because even if you wipe them second, a lot of the times you guys lose somebody too, and you might not have the capabilities to forward hold before they get the power players up. In which case, even if you beat them to third, as long as you know that there's no flank presence, I think all you really have to do is hold this corner. You don't need to swing it, you don't need to peek the spawn where the sniper is, you just have your demo trap this up, and maybe a heavy hold close against the wall here, and you're just kind of escorting for some cart time here. That ultimately is a much safer position than I think being like, oh, we can forward hold here, and they're like corner spamming this corner here and then getting sniped. It's a bit safer just to play the corner. However, most opportunities are, you might not be able to do that, or you might have to reset. Maybe they have a flank. Then you do the typical Vigil third thing, which is going to the flank. So coming through to the flank, you can check for some traps as you come through. The doorways sometimes have traps just above them. Obviously, the demo would have to be really forward to set these. Your sniper might take a quick peek through this window, but ultimately the goal is usually to get your combo, your sniper, and then whoever is going to hold the top side of flank up into this area. Now, when you're in this area, it's not exactly a safe place to be chilling long term. A defensive team, especially one that holds forward, can very well keep you at the brackets and then coordinate some kind of pinch with their flank while you're all right here. So hopefully if you come through this area, you're able to either like really protect these doorways and like set up your sniper slowly, or you're hoping to quick exchange. Maybe you guys have ad, but especially if you are just looking to exchange Ubers, typically you just want to come through and get ready to use. And it's going to be on like a demo, maybe demo scout. Again, the goal of a demo scout is really one, just to make the other team use. You know, if you get them to use alone, that's a win. But hopefully, with your Uber and your spy and whoever else is in the vicinity, you can get the gun down as well. Whether the gun is on tracks, sometimes it's back in the doorway, sometimes it's on top of the crates. But ultimately, there's not a ton of range for where the gun can be on this point. It's going to be in this general vicinity unless they're very, very far forward. So when your team exchanges through here, the ideal is you have some sort of presence set up on this high ground. So you want, even when you finish the Uber, I think you typically want your combo to end high ground and not be split up from all the players who you just set up and left over here. So you might have your sniper set up here usually at this point. Usually they come through with you flank. They might play here or they might play up top in the power angle that kind of like looks at everybody down here. Typically you have a soldier or a heavy or both set up to kind of defend them. You don't even need those players peeking. You just want to make sure that they're not in a position to get run at by the flank who is desperately trying to open up the space lost for the team again. So like these guys are going to try for a play probably with their spy who is often like getting behind in these locker areas to try to do something on you guys. So I think it's a lot of discipline, mostly on your team players. Like they need to not run forward and take fights and die aimlessly. Usually there's like a head glitch heavy here. They might have like a soldier or someone around here who's ready to rebomb, and then like a scout might just like run it down at you guys too. So like if you guys are exchanging and ending brackets, you might very quickly leave these guys outnumbered. So it's just they just have to be careful that they don't get pinched. I think otherwise, they have the DM to just win that fight if they just play damage and play it safe, and it keeps your sniper alive as well. Your combo ending in high ground here is probably about to take it back in and start going for that control we talked about in the like forward hold scenario. I mean, ultimately it all ends in the same goal, is you win this side of the map, and then you sticky up the corner so that your cart can be escorted up, and the only play that they have left is to hard swing the corner. But if they are already all hiding on the platform and they don't have people who are able to push out white room, they pretty much already lost. Those are their last two-ditch efforts. So you guys, as the rest of your team, are just playing to prevent that. So with your sniper here, usually during the exchange, I will kind of stay out of Ubers, just be close enough to bail my combo out if they overextend. But I will also be looking for spy on the sniper here. The spy pretty much has to go in here or they're trolling their team. So a lot of the times they go for it even if they are caught. Or you get them to recloak back, in which case you've bought enough time to maybe move down. Ultimately, there's going to have to be a time where you've decided, baiting is over. You're going to go low ground and you're going to go to cart. It's very important that you don't do this a little bit too early, because if they're still able to swing, like the corner is not stuck up yet, you don't have like a heavy hugging the corner, is somebody who's really safeguarding, like some power classes that are really safeguarding the swing that they do over here. You're very vulnerable going on the cart early, and you might need to like jump back for a second and live and then go back in, because if you hard commit and die, sometimes that kills the push too. So the timing of which that you go in cart is pretty important. But once you see those conditions in front of you met, you can leave your sniper. Hopefully they play a little bit closer to the cart. Ultimately, even if they die late into the push, as long as you guys get the cap, it's even okay if your medic dies. So like even if they bomb over your head, but they don't stop the cart, it's okay to lose on offense as long as you get caps. So a lot of the time here, I will bomb around the cart. I know a lot of people tend to hide on the left side of the cart just because it like blocks vision, and it makes it a little bit harder for these players that are swinging into you to actually hit to you, because they have to peek a little bit harder. But I actually think it's really good to hold close to the wall here, because if you hold really close to the wall, you can actually pre-fire this jump that they do around the corner here, because usually they have like a defensive pyro, they have a soldier, they have a demo, and a lot of those guys are just corner spamming. They're hoping to like blow you guys back. because obviously they can't blow you back without taking damage from here. Some of those players are forced to play a little bit close, whether it's building banner or trying to air blast you back. So I really like pre-firing the corner so that if they think they're about to be like, okay guys, I'm going to open it up now, they're already being bought back. So they like lose their opportunity just because you're kind of beating them to the punch. And that's something I actually don't really see many other pyros do, and I think it's really good. I feel like people should know that knowledge. Just because it can stop and kind of leave the wider peekers out to dry by stopping this initial push that knocks people off the cart and forces rollback. So playing the right side, I think, is a little bit better. That's just my opinion. I think that is it for third. We'll cover defense, obviously, but the good thing about doing offense first is it kind of covers a lot of these defensive scenarios just through the process of talking about what you're expecting in the offense. So it works out. Pushing from third to last. You have a little bit of time here. This is a lot of cart time. Look, I mean, damn, that is so much space between here and last. You're going to have enough time to do something. And I actually think one of the underrated parts of Vigil is because it is so hard for the offensive team to have a good exchange, post-fight, etc., and getting into last, it sometimes doesn't hurt to go for sacks. Like, you really have nothing to lose, especially in that 40 seconds or whatever it takes to build an Uber. So it's very common that even if you don't get a full wipe, teams just try to sack coming off of third because they have nothing else to lose. Now, typically, the run in sack is just through main because it is the path of least resistance to get in. A lot of times, like, heavies can just round the corner here. They head glitch. You as pyro running in can, like, air blast some stickies and use that spearheading very nicely to get some space for your other players coming in. The only thing you really need is the gun. So if you can get a sap or a really good swing that just kills the gun very quickly, you can actually get pretty deep here and contribute a lot to forcing players, I think, that are too committed. And we'll talk about that when it comes to defense. What I mean by too committed is, against a full setup team, it is a lot harder to sack, and the biggest mistake the defense can make is having just a few players chilling out on last because they think they're about to set up here, but they're not actually ready yet. Like, their gun isn't built. Maybe they're holding back here. They're like, oh, we're going to stop the sack, but the mistake is they're out at the spawn, and they can risk their life as a result of that because they're playing against people with nothing to lose. So go for sacks. That's the TLDR of that scenario. There's no right way to do it. There's many opportunities, many different ways. That being said, anywhere you come from, you do have to be wary of the threats that come to you. So that's just a general TF2 thing. I mean, you kind of, like, no matter where you go, you need to be actively thinking about, like, what's most threatening to me right now and what do I have the least reaction time to react to. And that's just kind of a spy checking staple, I think, as well. When you go through things, you check the places you have the least time to react to the most while using your eyes and visual, like, spy checking, like looking towards big door, for instance, for the ones that you have a little bit more time to react to. That's just kind of, I think, where you want to position yourself. So when sack is over, I think there's pretty much a very standard setup for pushing last. Obviously, this is when it gets into team-dependent category because even though there is a popular way to push last, there is no correct way. There are several pushes that work, and if I detailed all of them, we'd probably be here a really long time, to be honest. So I'll kind of talk about just maybe a class-based thing at this point. When you come through to outside, one, you're worried about passing this sight lane here. If the sniper is really aggressive in main and they're not being pressured by your own main players to not take this angle, you do have to worry about crossing through here just a little bit, especially if your medic is right behind you. Otherwise, coming through here, I'll check the hill really fast to make sure there's no, like, spy crouched around here in this general vicinity on the cliff edge. After that, typically what happens is you guys make it to about here. Usually what happens from this point on is you're thinking about how you want to pressure flank and big door. Very standard to have maybe an engineer in main with a mini, and otherwise you have your heavy soldier either chilling on this side or maybe just your heavy, and then your soldier will play on, like, the balcony over here. And then the rest of your combo. So your demo, your medic, your sniper are kind of looking to start killing the gun and big door. This is definitely one of those maps where it is very, very difficult to push if you don't get the gun first. If you use use your Uber to push into last and you spend most of it killing a gun, likelihood is you're gonna have a very bad post. You're gonna, like, lose all your heals, put your players in the flank, etc. at risk. So it is very good to try to get this in advance. So what typically happens is your demo sniper will drop around here. You might have your soldier trying to kill the gun. You might have your spy go for a sap, even though it's really difficult. Or they might also be playing enforcer from like main or big door or like the flank perhaps. You try to get the gun first, and then you try to immediately do something else. So pyro typically, I think, plays around these big door players. I think it's very good to spy check with your sniper. You know, spy only comes from so many areas on this point. I mean, think about it. This is a pretty linear path here where your sniper stands. Like, they're pretty much only going to come from, like, right behind you, or they're going to come down from right below you. Otherwise, they have to, like, walk through this distance and stab from the side, which is, I think, is a little bit more difficult, especially if you have somebody playing on the roof, preventing their flank from pushing out on you guys while you're playing big door. So, definitely, you know, you could just stand there spy checking. I think these days that's a little bit harder to only do spy checking, because as a defensive team, if they just chill back and let your sniper take pot shots at you, you know, they're probably eventually going to lose that unless their sniper is winning the SBS every single time. So try to, in an effort to reduce that pressure on their sniper, most teams now actually try to aggress into you a little bit. You know, they're going to have some forward players here protecting their demo and their pyro, etc., etc. They're all going to be contributing to this spam on your sniper big door. So alternatively, you could spy check for the right period of time, and then when you guys are actually swinging it, help your sniper get a little bit of space by reflecting that spam, and hopefully that gives your demo some value on the opposite as well. But if you're just letting your sniper take all those stickies and let themselves be pressured out, this is going to be a pretty hard fight for them. They have a lot working against them versus what you guys are able to provide. I think is just less in this scenario. So, that's really the only role I think that you're going to take around big door. You have to just be a little bit disciplined to not follow the action. You know, looking at all the players big door, you know, seeing what's going on with the gun, like, that's not something you can contribute to at the close range that you're limited to, so you have to be very, very careful. This just isn't your role, and you keeping these players up and giving them their best chance is all you can really do. That being said, you know, a few other scenarios, I do think that, you know, combo rotating over here to the flank and killing the gun from like this direction is pretty valuable. Especially because if anything else, it's not just the gun. You send a couple stickies, your scout, etc., come in this direction for a second. It chases out the flank players, and even though they are not taking the fight and dying a lot of the time, they're just like backing up. That buys you guys some time and health. That if you're very fast with this and rotate to big door, they're out of position for their immediate pinch and post. So dislodging them out of position is sometimes enough value, even if it's just a couple seconds in the flank. And you might even set up your own players in the flank, like that soldier who's playing the awning. If they get chased out and you guys say, okay, we're taking post in big door, and you rotate here and you get in, these guys are healed up and ready to go and take up all that space that they just left behind, and they might actually be able to get in deep, and if anything else, attract some eyes in another direction against a team who is already stressed about you guys taking this space all in the open over here. So, pretty good play. That's kind of the same value I think that Red Room players have over here as well. You know, they get in from another door, they attract some eyes, they attract some pressure, and if it's really well timed with you guys in big door, you guys might actually succeed in the post. But this is a hard point to win. Like, even if you guys get like 5, 6 picks sometimes, I've seen teams lose that. But it's almost always the same last ditch push. I mean, teams always try to wrap over here, and they have to swing in this main area here and collapse on you guys in main. It's kind of a very linear playbook, but it works because this is a lot of pressure, obviously, to get up here and actually, you know, not overextend and take the right fights and etc., etc. Now, you guys are winning your post. So, you probably are getting in at this point from big door. You don't want to stay here on your sniper forever, but it's going to be like third. You see the conditions in front of you for taking space. You want to move forward and be part of that effort and part of that presence, because if anything else, it sends a like signal to the other team of they have more players, they have more space, and they get a little bit nervous if anything else. They might think you guys are healthier than you are, but you're taking space together with your team, and you're also trying to outpace the people who are eventually going to go from the flank. If you linger here too long, you are probably just going to lose the CM fight against the better classes that rotate this way. So you want to be long gone by the time they're there. You want to come in, you want to try to get some time on the cart. As Pyro, you can do a lot of reflecting of like wherever the demo is coming from essentially, but also the soldier as well. A lot of teams try to like come off this corner, so I actually really like leaving like my heavy demo to control this area here, and I try to, like, again, pre-fire this area here so they're not able to even reach my players on cart. But I also flick behind, and I make sure we're not getting chain stabbed, and I'll, you know, do stuff like this just to be wary of the fight that we're taking behind, even if I personally cannot take this fight. Another important thing, too, is sometimes you will get in on cart, and then very quickly, their post is better. I think it's actually better to dip for a second and come back in on the cart if you're able to do that kind of thing, as opposed to just being like hard crouching behind the cart until it gets up the ramp every single time. Because if you hard commit against a losing fight, you know, you're one of the best classes to actually getting this up and finishing this fight. And if you die too early, your team no longer has that you know, blaster for all these positions. So it's actually really important that you recognize when the game state is changing, even if it's just like, maybe it's not that you guys are losing it, but if in another second, if you could just regain better positions, get better damage now that they're all forced in the open, like, you can win that a second later. It's not a permanent game state change, but you do need to recognize the times where your life is more valuable if you live towards the end, and that's not hard bait. It's just a positional thing. So, I do think with any ramp on this map, you know, knowing when to ditch the cart and come back in when more damage and more positioning has been placed is just a good skill to have, and you'll win more fights that way. That goes for other maps as well. I think, like, Swift Blast comes to mind. Like, there's very situational baiting, I think, when it doesn't look good for the cart. Because this is their first line of attraction. Like, every team that runs around the corner, you know, they're going to deal with the people in their faces first, and then their next target is the people balled around the cart. And you just do not want to be that target. You want to let your better, like, DM classes who are, you know, using that distraction of the cart, let them have a chance to win that fight. Cool. Okay, so we've spent so much time on offense, but I promise defense will go a little bit faster, just because we've already talked about so much. So, cool. Let me just run through here, because all the doors are open. Love that. Okay, so let's talk about that first hold again. So we talked about two scenarios here. We talked about the fence hold, which is essentially your passive hold, your maybe low confidence hold, or your, you know, it's a team determination. Only thing you really need to worry about here, I would say, avoid the action as much as possible. Like, you looking at things does not do too much, unless, of course, a bomb is called and you can hopefully intercept that kind of thing. It's really important, especially in this tight little area with all these doorways right behind you, that the spy does not get a big success here. So a lot of the times, if we're ever forced in these positions, I will just be spy checking very, very hard. I don't want to waste too much ammo if I don't have a dispenser here. But if anything else, you can do a lot of things visually and just be ready to, like, air blast people back and react. They very commonly come from, like, these corners here, you know, just whipping around with, like, really low reaction time. And that's pretty much just how it goes. But, you know, you always want to worry about the ones with the least reaction time first, where you're positioned, and then use visual as much as possible for those that you can see a little bit longer, when you're determining, like, how often you have to flick over. That's really all you have to do at the fence. Now, the flank, which is becoming an increasingly better hold, as much as the casters love to hate on it. The point of doing this is making every single point on visual viable. I know it is a very domino-heavy map, so you can lose things very quickly, and that is obviously the threat of wiping on a hold like this. But it's not necessarily a point you have to wipe on, as long as you're doing it well as a team. So, the thing to typically expect when the gates open at Vigil. Hopefully you have a spy calling where their combo is rotating. Usually they hold, you know, anywhere in this general vicinity. They're going to see where the combo, where the sniper is going, maybe where the heavy soldier are going. All of these matter. If they bring beam out, I would expect a fast exchange. I actually think it's pretty good to have pyro in this exchange because of that scenario I talked about where if you guys get the info late and they have a pyro in this, they could very easily hook in your team in post. So I actually think it's a little bit better just to have the pyro, just to land on them and bop them back and kind of like set where they're going to have to fight in their post. And then you guys can all play the floor after. And that's just, you know, generally a DM fight at this point. You want to keep your heavy alive. If you guys are up this corner too late, your heavy might be fresh meat, and it's going to be a lot harder to hold this because you won't have somebody controlling the hill. And without hill control, you know, your demo is going to be battling here. They're going to be spending the sticks over. The sniper is going to be able to wide swing to the flank and, like, shoot your engineer and your soldier and, like, your medic. You know, this is definitely a threat, so keeping some control over this, even if it's not just your heavy, but also, you know, calls to have your soldier bomb in as well if needed, is really, really important. that's why I think Pyro in the exchange is a little bit better than just doing a demo scout. Your scout will ultimately play with you guys on the floor anyway in most cases, or at least rotate around where the damage is going, but, you know, making sure that you have the numbers sets you up for success. The other thing you have to worry about is, are they going to send a sack first thing, you know, before the beam has come out? If your spy says sack, 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 well, there is a bit of a limited skybox, so you kind of know where the sack is coming from generally. The sack will veer around the corner under, you know, this low skybox. It could be a soldier, it could be a demo, it could be parachute. Um, I think it's a little bit better to, in advance, you know, you can check, especially if you're running home marker, you know, check these close spots like all these spots along the ridge here, the corner here for spy, but ultimately I want to be like looking up and seeing this range as much as possible. The only other place the sack can really get in successfully is from the flank doors. So while you're looking at this, you know, you have the cover of the gun to somewhat deal with the bombers as long as it doesn't get sapped, which is why I say you should check places in advance for spy and make it as difficult for them to just get a sap as possible. But you're looking for the bomb, and then you have to trust that the rest of your players are stopping these other doorways. Like, if your demo's not doing anything else on the sack, he can stop the doorway. Make sure a heavy soldier doesn't get through here. Make sure a sniper doesn't get through here, and just peek everybody during the sack, and maybe even drop your medic early on that alone. Your soldier will be around, your heavy will be around. Like, sorry, no, your heavy's gonna be over here probably. But teams are also rotating them to this side of the map more often, so, you know, they can be here. You will have help, and you just kind of have to trust that your role-based assignments are going to hold through. I do think it is very possible to force to a sack here, and honestly, it's okay if you force. You just don't want to wipe. If you do force, I would probably play it a little bit more typical. So play in a position where your medic can kite out. So I do think that kiting out the long way is a bit of a risk. I actually think it's a little bit better if you guys just play the flank. Sorry, like at the floor, kind of like if it's a post fight. And then your medic can play towards main tunnel. So if all goes well, you guys are still holding this down. You're making it so it's really difficult for them to do this for free. You have some flank support so they can't just like keep you with your sniper for free in this tunnel area. You're really forcing them to have to use into you. And then you just want some classes to survive so that you guys can escort through tunnel and have a second. The only thing you need to be careful about leaving first, especially if you do lose a couple people, is the immediate sack is usually pretty dangerous on second. I think they can very quickly turn this into a dry if they notice that you guys are too passive. And if anything else, if you're not too passive, this sack can be devastating if everyone is not set up in their doorways watching all the exits. So something to be wary about leaving. If you do not have the gun or the positions covered, it's okay to just dip to the spawn and wait. And then, if needed, if they're already set up on the point and need to retake, this is the retake position. Like, people always go from low ground, and it's not even the worst low ground in the game. You actually have quite a bit of vision from here. You can stop the cart. You can eventually, hopefully with people peeking shutter, win this fight and retake this ground in time. But ultimately, if you stop their cart pressure, it doesn't matter how all these guys are set up, as long as you're able to hold it down. The only thing that can really stop you in a retake position is a very good soldier spy play. So, like, usually they high bomb this. They'll try to, if anything else, get your medics separated, which is not good. They'll try to get on your sniper, because, you know, he's, like, one of the strongest people in retaking second, or your demo. And then everyone else on the team is usually in another position to retake. So, you might have a scout with you down here. You might have an NG with you. But typically, you might have soldier heavy retaking from these positions, because ultimately you need multiple doorways covered so that you're just not all 9 being stuffed and they can keep all their eyes in the same place. But if you're able to retake second, this is kind of the standard hold. So, you know, you usually have a dispenser here. You have one person watching tunnel. You have one person watching side tunnel. Usually that's the soldier heavy, so they can change roles in those positions. It's a really team-determined thing. I personally think it's a little bit better to have the heavy watching here and the soldier playing main tunnel, because they can get a lot of splash damage and banner building from those areas. But of course, there's some alternation that can happen here between the two. So the rest of the players here, you have your sniper kind of taking this angle again, using this line here as a bit of protection so that they have to peek into your sniper in order to start taking second. They're not just, you know, taking shots for free or taking pressure for free. They really have to cross this grand expanse here to really start engaging in the fight. Your demo is also kind of, I think, reacting off of calls mostly. You know, their attention might be forward spamming this hill here. But I mean, if you guys have a good spy and he's really call heavy and calling where the combo's rotating to, your demo tends to plug the other doorway, no matter where that is. Your soldier obviously is nearby in this case, so if you guys can build banner and have it be like a post type, post quote-unquote Uber, that's fantastic. But if anything else, very common that in the post-fight, your soldiers come nearby to whip and then bomb with your demo as they walk forward and try to just plug this choke. Because ultimately, people need to get through on hill in most instances, unless they're doing a double tunnel push. And you might lose a player in doing that, because if they bomb, the doorway they're watching is open, and you just have to make sure that people on your team are aware of that and are like covering the gap that has been created. Otherwise, the only classes I haven't mentioned is your Scout and NG. So NG typically almost always builds here. There is a gun spot here as well. I think those are the only positions I've really seen them. I've actually seen one crafty gun where they build in the shutter and will open the shutter and gun a bunch of people, but obviously there's a huge risk to not having the gun watching main tunnel. It kind of lets people in for free too, so there are trade-offs to everything. And then your Scout. Scout typically plays around main tracks. They can rotate, they can help with the damage on the hill. I actually think it is very, very good on this point to have your Scout chase the spy behind, because it is a pretty hard point to push if everyone is set up in their proper positions, proper angles. So the one thing that can really open this up is a spy stop on the gun, or, killing your NG, killing other players. This could be a very hard position for the spy to cross if your team makes it a hard position for them to cross. So if you guys are really good at spy checking, force them to fail half the time, maybe they finally get behind, then they have to hide on third. And Scout, I think, is really good for chasing that position, if anything else, because it keeps them off their timings for when their team wants to go. Now, something to be wary of is when the spy is up, and if you prevent your gun from being sapped, that gun alone can kind of prevent bombs or sacks that come over, So keeping the gun up, I think, is pretty worthwhile, because it makes my job as pyro a little bit easier. I know that as long as this is really well protected, I can stay turned. I can just work on, watching everything around me, kind of soaking in what's going on, listening to comms, and keeping my most important players, which are my demo, my medic, and my sniper, alive, because those are the win cons for this point in particular. So if I can rely on these guys for bombs, I won't have to be distracted by the spam and what's going on in front of me as much. So just something to keep in mind for any point. Gun equal good. That being said, in a post-fight, typically when you are walking forward and plugging, I will say that if everyone else is walking forward, I do try to double up, typically on one of the tunnel entrances. If we're talking exchange, you can take your pyro in on this. You don't really need to go in that deep. You just want to make them start their post in an unfavorable position. So air blast them back so that they're starting post down here. But don't be peeking and taking, facefuls of sniper in post. It's just not necessary. Your win condition alone can just be your demo and sniper having a better fight here and keeping your players up. You already have a very good advantage here with the sniper, the spam, the bomb, and the spy. This is very, very hard, and we talked about that when we talked about offense. So you alone really don't have to do too much more. You just have to rely on your team holding their positions, and then worry about the opener that usually comes from the flank. Because the only thing that can alleviate some pressure for the combo here is people coming in from another doorway. So if your soldier's engaged up here, if your heavy's walking up on the side, I like doubling up on side tunnel, just because I think that's typically where they come from. And if they're called coming through main tunnel, this is something that you guys can turn and deal with in time. Especially if it's heavy scaling the wall. They can turn and deal with this, but you always have to make sure you have eyes on the other one. Just cover your bases, that's all. But yeah, I mean, Uber exchanges, I would say the only other thing that could happen is them coming tunnel. So if they are called tunnel, I actually think pyro exchanges are very good for side tunnel, because this is a hard stuff. It's, you're pretty much forcing them to have a post that is either, they could try the same doorway. It's probably not going to be that great for them. So they'll probably rotate to main tunnel, or they're going to have to rotate to hill, which buys your guys time to just reset and retake your normal positions. And if anything else, while you're stuffing side tunnel, the rest of your players can just look forward and stuff these guys out and do some preliminary damage that already messes up their post, especially if they're getting cheeky and peeking a little bit too early. Any damage that happens here sets your team up for a better post while these guys are stuffed out. So main tunnel Ubers, I don't even think pyro needs to be in this one, to be honest. I think namely because you're kind of dropping down to low ground and you're just kind of bopping them back. So you know, there's only so much value to be gained here, and then you have to climb back up. So I actually think it's a little bit better that if you just like let your demo spam, and then the rest of you guys stay out of the way, so you're not taking damage from their Uber, and you are ready to stop all the other doorways. All in all, second is a very, very good point. So I definitely think discipline kind of pays off there. Talking about third, so third, standard hole. Again, I think third and fourth are points you want to be very, very careful about rolling out a spawn early, because second is such a good point that if you wipe, usually, yeah, the first people to spawn are like, I'm here on third, and those guys will have nothing to lose swinging you guys and trying to get what they can out of these people who feed early. So, like, just don't be in a feeding range. Roll out all 9 or close to 9 all at once, because they might have the door trapped. They might force you guys to go through last to get to third. If you're in those positions, you just don't want to give them anything. But assuming you get out, I think it's actually a little bit better to come out of the door wide, just in case there's somebody like holding close around the corner to like corner spam you. Same thing, you know, corner stab can happen in this position as well. I just check here, I check below, I like come out this way, and you're set up a little bit more now. Typically, you do not want to hide on the platform long term. If you're hiding on the platform, or even in this area right here, you have to worry a lot about, one, the sniper who's taking the windows angle. This is like pretty dangerous for everyone involved, and you guys are not even going to have a hope of holding third if you stay here for a long time. So eventually you're going to have to swing into these guys. It's just the timing of which that you do it that's going to make up the difference. It's timing of this swing, and then hopefully your flank is going through this white room, which comes out over here, and they can take some high ground and reestablish a little bit more positioning for you guys to play out. Playing out right here, I think, is the winning position. Or there's also a forward position where you're playing a lot closer and you have people controlling main. And that's a whole positional based thing as well. But when you guys are on the platform and on the floor, you know, there might be a regrouping timer here, but you don't want to stay here long term, and you don't want to, you know, be the change you want to see. Like, don't be part of the problem in, you know, continuing to be here because it's safe and the dispenser's here and the gun's here. Like, the more people that group around this area, it's kind of like a passive group mentality. People tend to go where they feel safe or where they feel that they're less supported. So, when you're in this position, obviously, you know, maybe you're regrouping, hopefully you're only here temporarily. You want to be spy checking a little bit, but you do want to be very wary of the high bomb that happens. So the high bomb actually starts usually around the flank. They will bomb up and they will bomb off this top wall. And you looking here won't even see that. You really have to tilt up a little bit, and you will see them coming over here to typically nuke where your medic is planning on the platform, or your sniper, or, you know, someone juicy. So you really don't want to give it to them. The only person I think consistently spots this is hopefully your players that are playing out can see that happen on the flank, or your spy can call it. But those are fail safes. Like, you at the end of the day need to make sure you are wary that this is a possibility, so they don't just land and nuke your medic in the doorway or something. So anytime I'm in this position, I'm very afraid of the high bomb. That being said, if you can get out into this position, this makes it a lot easier. You know, this high bomb now is complicated. They have to get around people that are playing forward. Like, typically you have a heavy head glitching here. You have like a soldier scout who are harassing up here. You're going to have your gun hopefully a little bit forward. You're going to have your sniper playing kind of a dominant angle here. And your demo is playing to stop typically where the combo comes from. Where the combo and the flank comes from, really. Which is around here. So now that you guys are out, I know it's a tight area, but you are able to look for them a lot more. This high bomb is more difficult. It's going to be more spotted. You just have to worry about spy coming through all these close angles. So like, and people coming from a drop down over here. So I think typically on this point, I see spy usually coming from the flank over here in white room. They'll try to just like veer around the corner, or they'll try to get your flank players and open that up. Or they're going to be going for your sniper from, like, you know, from that same room. They could just drop down here, try the corners. They'll try decloaking in this corner. You just have to prevent all these close things and then keep an eye on drop down. And I think this is very easy to support from then on. If you can watch their back, you can trust that your demo, your soldier, you know, your sniper are kind of holding this down. And if need be, you can play some reflex here as well. Typically, when a combo does come from over here, they have somebody coming through main as well, so you don't want to be like completely caught out if they were to round the corner. You know, you can be in a position where you can serve some bullets and live, but ultimately, playing out is the right play. Like, you definitely want to be part of that group mentality. And stuffing Ubers, you know, this is a very easy corner spam. Even if they use low ground, like, keep them to low ground. Like, low ground is a losing position as long as you have people above them. And that's kind of the play to live by on the defense is if you don't have any amount of plan to retake this high ground, it's going to be very difficult to do it again. It's going to be difficult to win this as long as they have this side of the map. So ultimately, your swing on the cart matters, and some effort to do this as well. I've even had times where like I come over here and like I'm just part of this general pressure. Like even if like what I can do range-wise on pyro is limited as I close this gap, like being part of the effort sometimes wins a bit of space, and you can hold for a little bit longer as long as these guys can come out and support you. But yeah. Only other thing I want to mention is if you are playing forward here and you're, you know, maybe, I'm not sure if you've seen WG do this, but we tend to do this hold a lot. The thing that you have to be wary of in this position is if they make it through this doorway, anybody, like maybe a scout bursts through over here, anything like that, then it becomes an issue to hold up here unless you have a very good lockers presence. Most of your players are going to be out in this area though, so you're going to have like a heavy in main, your like NG is going to be close to you, your sniper is going to be close to you, your demo is here, your medic is probably a little afraid, but in the general vicinity. There aren't many things that can get to you as long as you have snipers called and your main presence covered, which is usually like a heavy holding close to the corner and somebody else.
Yo,
As
wait,
long as...
is
Huh?
this another strat or what?
This is a forward hold that is going to vigil. If you have the chance to move to this forward hold before the other team gets to this doorway, you kind of force them to have to break through a really unfavorable position into you guys here. So you can actually buy a lot of time on third if your team successfully, you know, spams out this doorway, keeps their sniper from peeking low ground, and then you can hold here for a while. The only thing that can really break it through is if somebody, again, bursts through and gets above you. You know, that's a threat. And then a spy. I think spy is really successful in this position, coming through brackets, or jumping over the rock, or even just, like, peering around the corner. Because for you, this is a really tight range. Like, you as Pyro, sorry. This is a really tight range to play. So you're not going to get a lot of reaction time for seeing where the spy is. Like, you're moving your mouse a little bit, which kind of has a little bit of flaw ratio to it. And you're also probably getting spammed from the back by an enemy demo. And there's going to be a bit of pressure here for you to contribute to these reflex while also dealing with the spy checking there. So this is a talk, if you guys do a forward hold, that you need to have with your team. Determine who's spy checking, you know, where the biggest threats are that you're not as comfortable covering if you're expected to contribute here. And then, you know, hopefully you guys can have your bases covered enough that this hold can be very successful. But again, the only thing that really stops it is people getting through and then like a sniper being uncalled. So if you're holding low ground, you want to make sure your sniper, the enemy sniper, does not get deep enough to shoot your entire team. If you have the call, your sniper can rotate to it, your NG can have the gun spamming out this entire area, the heavy can round the corner. Like, there's a lot of things that can prevent a sniper from peeking you in main if you guys have good role distribution. But yeah, I
Alright,
just want... Yeah, go ahead.
because in ETF duel we don't do that, so I didn't understand at first.
No worries. I know a lot of teams don't do this hold, so I wouldn't say it's standard, but at least on WG, we're pretty successful at it, so we run it every season. I think usually the flaws that teams struggle with on this point is they don't get good control of all these different angles, and if they can't do it right, it's better just not to do it. It's like okay if you can't make the forward hold work, because playing outside successfully is still a very successful hold. It's just, you know, if your team is not able to do this successfully, it's just better not to take the risk and risk wiping or losing like a big advantage over here. It's okay to just back up and play standard. But if your team gets it down and they're able to like cover all the roles well, like my team is, I definitely think it's a good viable thing, because on a map that goes as quickly as this, every second counts if you can afford to regroup after it. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I think, again, forward holds are really just for buying a little bit of extra time. They don't have to be defining, and they don't have to be standard. Like, you don't have to be like, let's go to it if you don't have all the classes up or you're not comfortable. But something to do. The only thing maybe we need to worry about on third, and we talked about this when we talked about offense, is if you were locked out at the doors, you might be forced to roll out from this direction. If you are doing this, you're probably meeting a team that's already set up here to meet you guys on fourth, even if they don't have the cap on third. The only thing that can really open this up for you is having some players go through the flank, which is going to be difficult, because I think this door is actually shut before they cap third. So if that door shut and you can't get players over here to like maybe open it up from the side over here, you might just have to make the determination to go back to last. I think if you can keep ad or at least even on last, it is worth backing up. If you determine you're not going to win this, because if you have ad and you use back in or something like that, and it doesn't go well and they get the cap anyway, having disad for last is tough. It's doable, but it's going to be tough. It's a lot of pressure, and there's only so many ways that you can rotate, in my opinion. Like, for instance, we talked about holding last. You know, a lot of teams rotate through the flank. If a team is expecting that and it doesn't work out, or it takes too much time to get there, the staggers that you have on last can be really determining for a loss of an otherwise really great point. So just be careful. So talking about last, first thing I want to mention is kind of what I mentioned on offense. You don't want to be caught out. If you happen to spawn before the rest of your team, I think even if you're ready for a sack, you just kind of just don't want to be in this general vicinity if you don't have a gun up and you don't have some amount of support around the gun, just because they have nothing to lose coming in, and if they wide swing a sniper or somebody and pick you off, you have a 25-second respawn, and that's going to be tough. They can get a lot of cart time off of staggering your team, and it's better just, even if they're like at your doors, to wait for a second and then just come through on the right side and retake these positions wide. You know, you'll have heals to set up your flank to go this way, play from this door, play from going around if necessary, and then like you can have your demo, like medic, scout, pyro, or someone retake from this position here, and just take it slow, because you have a lot of cart time to work with here, and the only thing that can stop that is having one or two bad sloppy fights that you lose it all for. So if you get out of spawn smoothly and you take a nice little damage battle to hopefully win this back, you can set up in a very standard way on last. So standard on last is typically you have a gun, I would say usually here, sometimes it's over here on the flank. I think the crates one is a tiny bit better, but you know, team determined. You're going to have your dispenser somewhat in the area as well. I think typically it's right here for your NG to build on if they're building that gun. I personally don't like the flank one because I think it tears people away from the open area over here of pressuring the sniper, because they tend to go where the health is and where the dispenser is, and I think it's better to just play out and deny the doorways as opposed to play scared on the possibility that they might get in and start looking at you. You have your medic playing either around the dispenser or possibly in the corner, or possibly on the right side. Your demo is going to want to play forward, probably in this area. You don't need to be that far forward, because like if you play too far forward and you're peeking these doorways, you can get caught out if you don't have the right players to support that. So I actually think demo playing from right here and having like a heavy play close by or a soldier play close by to help with red room and spam main is actually probably the setup here. I think heavy soldier on the left side supporting the demo is very, very good. You can have your pyro full-time spy checking last. They have a dispenser. I actually think it's very good to just create like a wall of flame that makes this whole area uncrossable. Because if you know this area is uncrossable, you know, you've created like a wall of flame that they literally cannot pass, it kind of reduces the amount of places they can come from, and it makes it very easy for the people playing in those places to know, well, this area is uncrossable, so I'm probably going to see the spy trying to get here. They're trying to get through flank. They're probably trying to go through the spawn door. So if you're creating that wall of flame there, you know that it's going to be a long rotation for that spy, and as long as your engineer and your scout or whoever's playing on the right side is aware of that, you know, you kind of limit the last two doorways for them to be looking towards, and that makes it simpler for everybody. They know exactly what they're looking for, as opposed to being like, well, they could be here, they could be there, and like three people are wandering in circles. I think that the meta has changed a little bit to having scout on the flank. This is a bit team divisive, because you know, some teams will have their heavy here. They might just be playing to spot and do a little bit of damage against, if it's just light classes. They might have their soldier doing the same thing, but our setup of having the heavy soldier over here doesn't allow for this possibility anymore. So we play to have our scout spot and harass from outside, and then based on where the team is going, we have people rotate. The soldier can rotate very quickly to help with the flank, the demo can spam over to help with the flank if the combo is called there, you know, that kind of thing. But ultimately, being in these forward positions allows you to block out these doorways really hard and give their sniper no space to work with. So if this is going very well, you know, their sniper is peeking here, but he's getting blanketed with sticks. He has a sniper very safe and in the back, you know, very untouchable by spy, taking the SVS. He's being flared in the face. There could be soldier spam here, but, you know, ultimately, you know, your soldier heavy dude needs to be a little bit aware that they don't want to miss this peak and get mowed over. There's going to be a lot of pressure, and you playing forward also denies that angle on main. It denies that angle in red room. So, like, in my opinion, this is a very strong setup. It's not the only way that you can play, but it is very strong for not giving their sniper space and alleviating that pressure on your own sniper to take this responsibility single-handedly. That being said, if you're playing in these positions, it kind of just leaves it to exchanges. Hopefully, if the spy is uncrossable and you guys are really, really good at knowing the few places he can still come from, this sap's going to be difficult. You're probably going to force him to use just the enforcer here. It's going to be very hard for the soldier in the demo to just spam the gun for free, because you're playing forward, you're spy checking, you can reflect things very easily without really disrupting that process, because you can recheck those areas right after, knowing that they've only had so much time to cross into them. If you make your gun unkillable, this makes it really hard for the enemy team, because they're going to have that scenario we talked about in the offense, where if they are forced to use their Uber on the gun, you know, the defensive team, it can milk the pop a little bit. They can make them spend all their spam on the ammo, or like, sorry, I said that super weird. Waste all of their spam on the gun, which could be countered by a pyro getting Ubered here and just air blasting their spam and giving them no space to have for posts. So now they start their posts and they're in just as bad of a position as they were ahead of time trying to spam the gun. They still have no gun pick. They still can't get room for their sniper. And hopefully you guys, if you're not getting picked off by anybody here, or like anybody trying to open up this scenario, and you're very good about rotations to the flank, this is an impenetrable hold. This is why people, I think, really struggle with Vigil, is they get devastating times on last by not having good timed side pressure and picks to open this up.
But
So,
I
oh
have a
yeah,
question.
sure, go ahead.
What if they just bust through flank, like they send like a bunch of people through flank and then they set up in there for a push?
Well, if they set up in the flank, first of all, in this area over here, it is pretty easily spammed out by the defense. Like, there are a lot of classes here that can't contribute anything when they're in this area here besides taking damage. So if you guys know they're coming here, like your spy has called, either they're crossing to the flank or maybe they're going down this chilly area, this like lower area, undetected to the flank, you should have a call that they're coming in advance. And even if your players dip, they can be spammed out by your classes ahead of time. You can have your soldier rotate over there. It can be a lot of spam and a lot of pressure that ultimately probably won't allow them to come through here unless their plan is to quickly use. Because if they don't quickly use, or they flash too many people in, they're probably not going to have a good post off of health or amount of people committed alone. I think usually if you come through the flank, it has to be a very quick exchange for the offense, because they need to come through before they get blasted and have bad health for post. And if any extra people come in, like you as Pyro or something, come in, and you're not in this Uber, like it's going to be a lot of chips from a lot of different areas, and this is not exactly a favorable position to come in for post. Though it's not impossible. Like, I've sacked from this area before. I've had posts in this area just like coming in and being a distraction and doing a bunch of damage. But likelihood is a team that plays this a little bit smarter and meets them early enough just has better health and positioning for posts. That's just the bottom line.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. And don't get me wrong. Like, if it was truly impenetrable, this would be a point nobody ever wins. There's always going to be things that go wrong, or timing, or really good picks that happen, or people making mistakes that open it up. And there are well-coordinated things too that, you know, can promote the success as well. Which is why, if you guys are playing a post fight, you know, typically people back up and get out of the Uber exchange a little bit. If the post is really well timed, like people getting back through here while the positions are disrupted, could be that opening that they need to have a lot of success in big door. You know, that buys that sniper room, and suddenly the sniper is taking pot shots at everybody without being pressured because they can't afford to be forward anymore. Like, these are the plays you have to look out for on defense. I think you just have to be very careful about how you play your life, and especially if you're a pyro player, you need to know when distractions are not for you. If your gun is down and you're all backed up here, I would be thinking about the bomb being an inevitable possibility, but that doesn't mean I can stop spy checking. The second I start looking forward on this point and I stop doing my spray line, I've kind of lost my control of the point. But the win con still remains the same. If a spy does get through and stabs your sniper or your demo, this is very hard to hold. So it takes a lot of discipline once you start losing your fail safes. Like you lose your positioning, you lose your gun. Your role expands a little bit, but you have to try to like know what is an ignore for you to best play your role and trust your teammates to carry the other end of the deal.
Okay. I'm only asking the flank situation because like there's been a bunch of times where my flank players die and they have a 25-second respawn timer.
Oh yeah.
And then the team just like sets up their medic in here and the spam is just not as big of a problem because now they're building faster and their medic is just like beaming everybody.
That's true.
Just
The
barely.
offense might have an opportunity to build a little bit faster, especially if your medic is conditioned to being in these far areas away from your flank. That being said, I mean, it is kind of a big mistake of your flank players to die. The only scenario I think they should be dying for is if the play is to be a collapse. So, like, for
But like
instance...
how do you as like
Mhm.
pirate try to help them? I know that it's not your responsibility because you're here
Are you
obviously.
talking about helping your flank players?
No, not really, but like when they start pushing up, because obviously the demo is gonna start spamming the gun or whatever, and there's just a lot of responsibilities. Like the spy might go in because now the flank is cleared.
That's
There's
true.
no one spotting
And
it.
this becomes more of a threat
Yeah,
because you have less people spy checking on this side of the map.
yeah.
It unfortunately your roles just kind of expands, but you have to be really careful to hold the line. I mean, there are many times where if the demo is just spamming from this position, like if I can afford to do what I can and then also try to get some spam off of it, I can. They might outpace my ability to reflect, especially if they are spamming from multiple corridors. But getting most of it while your NG repairs is sometimes the best thing that you can do. But you also need to know sometimes that if you're too distracted by this, you have to keep reminding yourself internally of like, yes, I'm reflecting spam, but I need to be flicking. Like I need to be checking these close areas because if you hone in on this too long, that's the distraction they need to get in. Especially if you know your NG is also busy, because a lot of the time when they're spamming the gun, your NG is desperately repairing it. That means two of your spy checkers are honed in on the same thing, and it leaves a very big vulnerability for your team. And I think it's better to play the win con in that case. Like you can still win when your gun goes down, and ideally, what helps your gun not go down is having the rest of your team stuff these doorways really, really well. So it's just difficult for them to get in these positions, especially if like you can have a flank run over to the far side and cross spam with this or be some kind of repush. But ultimately, like you can afford to lose your gun, but you can't afford to get chain stabbed in this kind of position. So you have to recognize when other people on your team are looking forward and know that nobody else is thinking about looking back in that very moment. This kind of goes across all the maps too, especially on Koth. There are times where even pyro can actually be a good part of the action, but you have to just like give yourself the couple seconds that the other team hasn't had the time to react to yet, and then drop back and start playing a defensive role because other people are contributing to those fights. Oftentimes they're better classes or they're better fighters. They can create more opportunity. But nobody after a couple seconds, everyone has goldfish brain. They're gonna stop thinking about the spy and they're gonna stop thinking about the bombers. And you have a hard position. This is a hard class. You have to constantly be checking yourself and reminding yourself that other people don't think about these things or keep track of the little hidden things that probably come soon in the game state. But they're almost always inevitable. Like, the pinch is very inevitable. People do coordinated plays between their combo and flank. They go for solo plays. Like, you kind of have to expect the unexpected and also expect the very expected. Because sometimes they don't really have a chance to decide the timing they come in on. Like, even if it seems obvious, it's the right time to go in. And a moment of distraction could give them that opportunity. So, that's what I would advise you to do. Even if your flank does feed and your combo's not doing a good job at like holding this down and making this difficult for them, sometimes you only have a couple seconds to work with, and you have to start checking yourself to continue to control what's around you, I guess. And spy checking a close area like this, like, what's good about spy checking things in your range is you can, one, clear where they currently are at that given moment, but based on the range that you do, you know how much time it's going to take for them to get into that position after you've checked it last. So you spray around here, You know, they might be here backing up for a second, and then they have a couple seconds to move back in. You check again, you know, 3 seconds later, they might be in that position again or move back. You know, you buy yourself time by clearing the spaces close to you, but ultimately, you know, pyro isn't even the best spy checker at range. You kind of do rely on other people, but you can do very good area control just by keeping track of the dislodging time that you have done by checking certain areas. Hopefully that answers your question a little bit.
Yeah, it definitely does. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. I think that pretty much concludes Vigil. We went pretty in depth. Does anybody have any other questions about any point?
Oh yeah, right. Are there like any like specifically good debt spam angles that I don't know you never considered?
Mm, good question. I mean, there are some great blind spam angles right here on the sniper spots. Because, like, if you think about it, they take a pretty tight peek around the corner. Like, you can see it. Just, I mean, you don't need to go sniper for it. Like, look how deep they have to get around this angled surface to really get you guys on the left side of, well, your left side of crates. Um, if you are good at that blind spam angle, I mean, it's pretty good. You can just like walk up like the left side here and have a pretty comfortable range of spam. And then also if they're crouching on the roof to drop down or something like that, you know, you have that as well. I think all the dead spam angles on last are actually very good. Like, you don't really have to peek too much. There's a really stupid spot I found once. This is actually really stupid, so I actually don't recommend people do it. But you could jump and hit the sniper anywhere on last just from here. And if anything else, you're slightly offset from your sniper peeking above you. So like, I find that there are times where if you peek with your sniper in a different position, they're tempted to peek you based on how annoying it is. And that might win your sniper the SBS on a surprise scenario. That being said, you could probably do the same thing just by playing your role a little bit better. I do think, especially with the demo spamming out the sniper now, you can't afford to just peek without like reflecting and do other things like that. So, you know, third, there's a bunch of standard, I think, angles as well. You are typically peeking the sniper a lot of times when you spam them in these positions, which is unfortunate. I don't think there are many angles over the rocks that you can spam sniper on either. I'm talking about mostly sniper spam just because the other debt spam probably doesn't really matter. You know, you can check for info on the heavy by spamming them there. I mean, this info is only so useful. If anything else, I just do this so that my flank has a little bit of health benefit if the heavy does decide to fight them. It's not really an info thing. It's more just you help them out by throwing them like a bone, pretty much. Second, yeah, I mean, this is tough. We kind of talked about that earlier. I don't think it's really a hidden debt. It's just playing over the line. And then first, it's, you know, if you have the opportunity to spam, like, you know, an off angle, I think that's good. But I don't think anything is really a sneaky, like, over the rock, cool debt angle on this map. At least not that I'm aware of. The only thing I would be a little bit wary of is the corners, which is not so much of a detonator thing, but, you know.
I think like on the A sign, all the way into the far right back spawn is really good,
The
in my
A
opinion.
sign. Where's the A sign?
Right up above you. So like from here, you can like hold kind of near the fence spot, and then you can like
Just like over this?
not over this, like play a little bit further back. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Over here?
You can look. Yeah, you can det into
Yeah,
there,
I see.
as well
Probably
as
go over the hut, maybe.
to
Yeah.
the right door, because
Makes
over
sense.
there I can catch spy, and then I already know spy time. It's free.
Yeah, no, it can be. It's probably only going to buy you a few seconds, though, so just be a little bit careful how much you expose yourself to silly things. I know on Swiftwater, for instance, you can spam over the fence and hit the cart, which is, you know, fun, free damage. It might pressure out some people, especially if they get body shot, but ultimately it's like kind of insignificant damage in the long run, and I only have a couple seconds before I have to start spy checking the cross that they can do very quickly on Swift anyway, so with any silly debt angle, I would just be a little bit careful about how much time you spend doing it before you catch yourself being distracted. Cool. Uh, anything else, or is that all?
That's probably it. But do you have time to check that demo I sent?
Probably not. I think I'm a little bit fried, to be honest. But we can talk about
Okay.
it another time, probably. yeah, I just have to manage my fun time. So
Okay,
cool.
that's fine.
I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you guys coming. This went a little bit longer than I expected, especially for such a short map, but I hope it does help. I have a
Thanks so
recording,
much.
and hopefully we'll post it soon.
Yeah, could you send me it? Or I'm guessing it'll
Yeah,
probably be
I'll
like sent in.
try to upload it somewhere, but we got it. Anyway, thanks guys. I'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Goat.